Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome into Coffee Break. I'm super excited because today we're going to be talking about the Nuggets. We're going to be talking about Embiid, the MVP race, and then we'll get into a little bit of Denver Broncos talk. A lot of people know this guy. They know and love him, follow him very closely because he is so in touch with the Denver Nuggets. I'm super excited to have on Swipa to the show. Let's bring him in. How are you, my friend? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's always good to see you, Rachel. I love your platform, love your program. You do a wonderful job every day.
Oh, I appreciate you so much. How are you, first of all? You are in Atlanta, but you're covering the Denver Nuggets. It feels like left and right, every single move they're doing. Tell me, how did you first get into the interest of it? I'm curious.
Yeah, in terms of getting into the Swipa stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started this on December 23rd, 2020. I played, college football. I tried out for the NFL. Like, I've been working as a public speaker for a long time. And then it was basically just like, I wanted to see something a little different, I think, in the media space. And I just realized that, like, if anybody was going to do it, I should do it. And literally just out of nowhere, created Swipa. And it's just become this whole little phenomenon now that's grown into this thing. So it's been a lot of fun. But honestly, Rachel, like people like you, I couldn't, without you, without Adam Mares, without Matt Moore, without Vic Lombardi, without Chris Marlowe, Scott Hastings, without Chris Dempsey, Katie Wingy, anybody, Dave Logan, who I've known for 20 years of my life, basically. I mean, there's so many people that made all this possible for me that have been true, friends and really just helped me navigate the sports media world very well. So like Ryan Blackburn, Danilo, Nate Lundy, I legitimately can say that every person that I've met, Jenna Garcia, everybody I've met and worked with, including yourself, has been just tremendously great and just very helpful. And I'm completely thankful for all of you just for the fact that we've been able to work together so well. And I can say I have good relationship with everyone as well. You're, like I said, you're amazing. I've been watching you for a long time. You have a great gift and a great voice, and you have a great platform. People resonate with you very well. So it's an honor to be able to spend some time with you for sure.
No, I appreciate that. The Denver media is honestly fantastic. We're so lucky that we get to cover the teams here, right? So looking to the Denver Nuggets, obviously the NBA trade deadline is coming up next week. Lots of people are starting to talk about this. Do you anticipate the Nuggets making any moves, or how are you feeling about this event that's coming up?
Yeah, they're really crunched with the cap right now just because they're in the first apron because of the new CBA agreements and everything. They're not going to have a lot of room. They can't even trade out. So if, for instance, if there's a player that's bought out, they can only be bought out for a veteran minimum, basically on contract for the Denver Nuggets, and they don't have a room to go over that. The only creatable contract they have would be Reggie Jackson at 5. Zeke Naji has a poison pill about $4 million this year. And then obviously they have their starters, but they're not touching their starters. So they really don't have a lot of options and a lot of tradable assets. The biggest thing I think they need, though, is just a larger backup 4. I know if you remember Vlatko Chanchar last year, 6'8", 230, really good athlete, could shoot. And he's a bigger body for when you got to go small ball 5 with AG. You want to have a Jeff Green type of athlete and size next to him. So they're probably missing that more than anything because I think Payton Watson is going to be an incredible player. Payton, for me, though, slots more as a 3 and as a 2 in his future just because of how long and lanky he is. He doesn't necessarily have the size now, I think, to deal with some of these larger power forward, even though he did a really good job in Giannis. So the best thing I think they could get would be somebody at that power forward slot. And then if they wanted to make a massive upgrade at backup point guard, maybe, but I don't know if they have the assets to do it.
Let's talk about Payton Watson real quick because he really did do a good job on Giannis the other night. All the players were kind of slapping him at the end of the game. You did this. You're proving who you can be here in this league. And I feel like this is only the beginning for him. Truthfully, I feel like he's about to take off here. If not this year, for sure in the next year.
Yeah. I mean, look, Payton Watson, when he came in on draft night, I understood what they had in mind. They saw Herb Jones Jr. for the New Orleans Pelicans, and they said, we need a player like that. That's a kind of in between AG, KCP, a longer KCP, but can kind of get vertical like AG does. And Payton Watson's already one of the best defensive wings in the NBA. I think for him, it's just figuring out and rounding out his offensive game. And as you saw yesterday versus OKC, not making some of those young boy fouls, when you don't have to foul, making sure you're staying out of the way. And I think some of this for Payton, man, he legitimately, for me, has dang near all-star potential just because you don't find two-way players that are developing a pull-up mid-range game, or they have the ability to attack in transition and have a decent free throw rate. And then on the other end, you can switch in between Damian Lillard or Giannis or Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Devin Booker. Like, there's just not a lot of players you can do that with. And I think he really, like, the limit for him is just going to be whatever he decides he wants to be for his career as a player.
For sure. A lot of people have been like, why don't they use DeAndre Jordan a little bit more? Where's DeAndre Jordan going to fit into this mix? And I always tell people, I'm like, DeAndre Jordan's like the dad now of this team where he's kind of there to, keep guys motivated, pump them all up. Would you like to see them use more of DeAndre Jordan? Or do you think his role and what's happening for him right now at this point in his career is totally fine?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a young, player anymore in the league. I think some of this is DJ is able to give you really good spurts. The problem is DJ is not the most mobile athlete like he used to be. So you're going to have trouble at times finding ways for him to be as effective as he could be. And I think, DJ, he's a very good veteran player to have in your roster, but it's not somebody that you want to deal with like a Paul Reed, for instance, for 20 minutes or 15 minutes a game as the backup center. And even in the playoff, because Rachel, when you get in the playoff setting, a lot of the time, because especially in the Western Conference, it's so guard and wing reliant, unless you have a drop big or a hedge big like Jokic, who's able to get in the gaps and fill in the spaces really well and play well at the pick and roll level, you can't really have bigs on the court unless you're like Rudy Gobert and they're like an elite level rim protector. And DJ is neither one of those things at this point. So I don't think he gets a lot of run in the playoffs. I think the biggest thing is that Zeke Naji is just not turning out to be what they want him to be so far. Doesn't mean he won't, but that's probably been the biggest miss, is that he got this 4-year, $32 million deal, but he's not in the rotation. Played versus OKC yesterday. He was a minus 12 in like 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He just is not a playable player right now.
What is it, though, about Zeke Naji? Because I feel like there was so much talk about him. Is it because, I don't know, has he been lazy? Like, what is it about him? Because seriously, I feel like there was so much hype around him, and it just hasn't transferred over to the NBA level.
Yeah. So Zeke has had an unfortunate start because he's had great starts at times, then he gets injured. And so when a player is young, they don't get a lot of minutes, and then they got injuries that disrupt their minutes, and then they have a level of play that doesn't meet the requirement of a championship level team, and then they get pulled from the rotation. So it's a lot of like tug and go. And I think it's hard to develop continuity with yourself when you don't play as consistently like that. So I think for Zeke, he just needs to be in a situation where he gets to play a lot and often, kind of like Isaiah Hartenstein when he was here in Denver. Isaiah Hartenstein, terrific center for the New York Knicks, one of the best defensive centers in basketball. When he was with Denver, bad hands at times. He was just kind of sloppy with his feet, but you saw the mechanics there, but he just needed to play more. And Zeke, I think if he gets a fresher start, maybe somewhere else, or even, maybe with the Denver Nuggets, like if they give a chance to give him some real go in the future, he'll be better. But he just doesn't have it. Like, he's not a great finisher. He can't shoot the three anymore. And he's just not like consistent enough defensively with his hands and his body that his foul rate can just be like incredible sometimes. So it just, again, when you say all that, that means the player is really young. It just needs a lot of development.
No, for sure. I just keep thinking about DeAndre Jordan and how he pulled off the saran wrapping of Jalen Pickett's car. I'm like, I need to know how he did this. Like, did he do it during the game? He was like, Coach, give me 2 minutes right before half. I'm going to run out there and saran wrap this car. Did he hire somebody to do it? Like, this just keeps popping through my head every single time I think of the Denver Nuggets. I don't know why, but it's like my Roman Empire at this point. I'm like, I need to know how this happened.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea. That whole fiasco reminded me of that issue that Kenyon Martin had a decade ago when J.R. wrapped his car, and it almost led to some blows. So thankfully, Jalen was like cool about it because he's still, rookie in the league and everything else. But yeah, players find time to do that stuff, to prank rookies and everything. So it was a lot of fun.
All right, let's look back at last night's game. Obviously, they lose to the Thunder. It was a bit of a bummer, close game. They just could not get a rebound in the fourth quarter, which is really what kind of sealed the deal for him. But Jokic misses the game with low back pain. Nikola Jokic puts in a lot of minutes. We all know that. Are you at all concerned about this back pain, even in just like the slightest? Like, it's something you're keeping on your radar, or are you like, no, he just needed an extra day of rest?
Not really. Well, the reason is, he's missed 2 games now this year. He's on pace to play 80 games, which he probably won't. He probably play around 76, 78, maybe, if not 75. Some of this is Joker he had it last year a little bit. But once the playoffs come around, like, everybody is nicked up and bruised up. And a lot of it is just how well can you play through injuries. I mean, literally everyone from Giannis to obviously Embiid to SGA to Kevin Durant, LeBron, AD, they're all going to have some kind of little injury they're dealing with. And so are you able to play through it and elevate? And so this is the thing, Rachel, about the finals that people may not get initially. It's not just about like talent, how good your team is. But when you get to the first round, it's hard. It's way harder than the regular season. Second round, it's a different beast. Third round, way different beast. And then you get to the finals, and it's not even about like efficient shot making for most people anymore. Now it's about, can you get through a game and do enough to overcome what your opponent is doing? Because when you get to that point, your body is basically going to be like, look, everything that you did in the summer, everything you done in the regular season to maintain after and before games, this is when it matters the most. And you saw Jimmy Butler last year. He was very healthy versus the Bucks, 37 points a game, crazy. He was healthiest kind of versus the Knicks, had the ankle injury that he went to the Celtics series, not the same player, still dealing with some injuries. And by the time he gets to the finals, he's just not the same player because you've gone through 4 rounds of elite basketball, and now you're having to play versus a huge athletic team. So I think for Jokic, he is still going to be better situated than maybe anybody else in the league to be able to deal with that because of his size and how well he takes care of his body.
Well, and I was watching the Pivot podcast. I don't know if you saw that. MPJ was on it with Ryan Clark. It was really fascinating because he was talking about, how everybody thinks that playoff basketball is like so much more intense and everything. And he was like, it is, but that's because you start to learn the plays from all of these teams. So defense is able to get better, right? When you're going night in and night out and you're changing up things, you're playing your Nuggets game, but eventually during the playoffs, you start to play towards the other team as well because you know all of these plays. You know when they're going to shoot, a 3 or when they're going to hand off the ball, whatever it's going to be. And I found that to be just so fascinating because you're right. Like it does seem like playoff basketball is just more intense as it should be, but it's not because the game is any different. It's just because they're getting to know their opponents more.
Right. Rachel, do you play Mancala or chess or anything?
I love Mancala. I haven't played it in a really long time, but I do love it.
Well, so this is what we're going to do. One day we'll exchange numbers. We'll play like games with each other. And this is what's going to happen. The first game you and I play, who knows? It might be a blowout for you or for me. We don't know. But if you do that for 15 times, we're going to figure out each other's tendencies by that point and how we think through a game. And it's the same thing in NBA basketball. When you're in a situation where I'm looking at you every day for basically a 2-week span, I know everything you're about to do. Now it's about me beating you to a spot and me understanding I'm going to play the odds. I know you want to go left. You got a 62%, 2-point pull-up percentage here. When you're at this spot, I'm going to make you go the other way. Like it's just figuring out those tendencies, executing, and then whoever can execute the best down the stretch off of the opponent's tendency, that's who wins the series.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna definitely take you up on that Mancala one. Definitely so much fun. Those Apple iPhone games are addicting, and the paintball one, so addicting. All right, I do have for our producer Joey did an amazing job. He's a huge NBA fan, and he put together a few names that he thinks that the Nuggets should go after at the trade deadline. And I'm curious to get your opinion. Roll the clip.
Here's some of the possible trade acquisitions we could take over as the Denver Nuggets move towards the trade deadline. The number one is Dennis Smith Jr., the Brooklyn Nets, a backup point guard who could lift the Nuggets defensively and possibly fill that spot that we've been missing since Bruce Brown left. Another is Andre Drummond, who would be a backup center who could play with DJ and kind of split the minutes there. Possibly won't see very many playoff rotation minutes, but could provide a huge boost going into that playoff run to give Jokic and DeAndre Jordan and Aaron Gordon some time to sit on the bench and relax. Jordan Clarkson is another one of the Utah Jazz, who's a veteran 6-man that would provide a huge boost in bench points. The only problem there is his cap, his space, might take up a lot of room for the Nuggets. Some people we could see leave, Zeke Naji, who's a young athletic big man with a medium trade value that other teams would see as a positive. Another is Reggie Jackson, who's performed well, but due to a small contract could be used as a good side to teams who are in cap trouble. And Justin Holiday, who doesn't have much space to grow with Payton Watson and Christian Brown around him taking up minutes. He could fit in somewhere else very well, but I'm very excited to see what the Nuggets will do come February 8th.
I love this. This is Joey's first time. He's really starting to get involved too, so it's fun to see what he's able to come up with. But a few names right there, and I saw you kind of shaking your head behind the scenes. What do you think of those 3 names that he says could be added?
Yeah, Andre Drummond and probably Jordan Clarkson are going to be way too expensive, and the fact that they're going to have so many suitors around the league, if they try to move those players, they're going to have a litany of options. I think the most realistic one is going to be Smith, and the reason is because he has a very cheap contract. I don't think a lot of teams necessarily value what he brings to the table. But again, it's him and Chris Dunn with Utah. They're both players that were drafted pretty high, both defensive aces, but they just didn't have the kind of skill sets that were transferring to like high efficient point guard play that people said we want to keep on our roster. So then people just got him for really cheap. And I think that Smith is a archetype of player that is a very good defender, that has good rim pressure, that gives you like a Bruce Brown feel that would work well with Denver. But really at that point for the Nets would be do they want to take on any assets that the Nuggets have? Would it be valuable to them? And then on top of that, we're going to give you an older player that's probably not going to be as good as them, meaning like Reggie Jackson or something. So it really should up to them what they seem to be valuable. But if the Nuggets would want to make that trade, then, I wouldn't be too mad at it, just because obviously you don't want to lose Reggie because, he's the Colorado kid himself from Palmer High School. But he's a really good player and a really good defensive player as well.
For sure. Swipa, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. We will definitely have you on more.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much for letting me be here today.
All right, everybody. We will see you tomorrow morning, 12 p.m., or I guess tomorrow afternoon, 12 p.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. Love you guys. Bye, everybody.